You know, it's pretty wild to think that one of the most practical, actionable guides to living a good life wasn't written last week. It was written almost 2,400 years ago. So today, we're going to crack open what is essentially the owner's manual for human flourishing, written by the one and only Aristotle. So let's start with the exact same question Aristotle himself asks. And seriously, take a second to think about this. Why do you, well, anything? You go to work to make money. Okay, why do you want money? For security, maybe to buy stuff you like. Why do you want that stuff? You see, every single thing we do seems to be a means to some other end. But what's the final destination? What's the one thing we're all chasing just for its own sake?
All right, here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll lock in on Aristotle's ultimate goal. Then, we'll look at the path and the specific tool you need to get there. After that, we'll explore a couple of essential extras for the journey, and finally, we'll piece it all together into his complete blueprint for living the good life.
So, first things first, that ultimate goal. Aristotle looked around and saw that pretty much every craft, every action, every choice we make is aiming for some kind of good, right? The goal of medicine is health. The goal of building a boat is, well, a boat. But he was after the big one. What's the master goal that all these other things are actually serving?
And his answer is a word we all think we know: happiness. He says it's the one thing we pursue only for itself. Think about it. We might want honor or money or pleasure because we think those things will make us happy. But we never want happiness so that we can get more money. Happiness is the final stop. It's the ultimate end of the line for everything we do.
But here's the twist, and it's a big one. When Aristotle says happiness, or eudaimonia in the original Greek, he is not talking about that cheap thrill you get from eating a piece of cake. For him, happiness is an activity. It's a verb. It's the lifelong project of living well and doing well. It's about human flourishing. You living at your absolute best.
And he has this amazing line that just nails the idea. One swallow doesn't make a spring, and one good day doesn't make a happy life. It's something that's earned and demonstrated over a complete life of excellent activity. It's like winning the marathon of life, not just feeling good for the first 100 yards. Okay, so if happiness is this ongoing activity, this working of the soul in the way of excellence, then the obvious next question is, how do we get that excellence? And that brings us to the path. We have to acquire virtue.
Now to explain how this works. Aristotle makes a really crucial distinction. He says virtues are not like our senses. You're born with the potential for sight, and then you just open your eyes and use it. Simple. But you are not born just, or courageous, or patient. You become just by first doing just things. Your character isn't something you're given, it's something you have to build.
And his analogy for this is just perfect, so down to earth. You don't become a builder by reading about it. You become a builder by actually building things. You become a musician by playing music. It's the exact same for character. You become brave by acting bravely when you're scared. You become disciplined by acting with discipline when you'd rather not.
So you see the pattern here? It's all about habit. Virtue is a habit. It's forged in the fire of repetition. You do certain actions again and again and again. Those actions slowly become habits. And over time, those habits become your character. They become your default setting. And as he says, whether you build good habits or bad habits from a young age, well, that makes all the difference in the world.
Okay, so we're supposed to practice being virtuous, but what does that actually mean? What are we aiming for? How do we know if an action is brave or just plain stupid? For this, Aristotle gives us this incredible practical tool. It's probably his most famous idea, the golden mean. The basic idea is that for just about any situation, the virtuous thing to do is to find a middle ground, a mean between two extremes or two vices. One is the vice of deficiency, meaning having too little of something, and the other is the vice of excess, having way too much.
Let's make this super concrete with a few examples. Let's take courage. That's the virtue, the mean. The deficiency, or having too little of it, is cowardice. But the excess, having too much, is rashness or recklessness. Or what about generosity? The virtue is liberality. The defect is being a cheapskate, or stinginess. The excess is just throwing your money away, or prodigality. The sweet spot is always right there in the middle.
And why is this middle way so important? Because, as Aristotle puts it, the mean is what is praised and goes right. It's not about being average or boring. It's about hitting the bullseye. It's doing the right thing, in the right way, for the right reason. That's virtue.
So, we have our goal, happiness. We have our path, practice virtue. We have our tool, the golden mean. We're all set, right? Well, not quite. Aristotle knew that you don't live life in a vacuum, so he adds a couple of essential ingredients for a truly flourishing life.
First, and this is a big one, is friendship. For Aristotle, this is a total non-negotiable. He says we're social creatures by our very nature. A life without friends, and he means real friends, people you admire and care for their own sake, is simply not a complete or happy life. You could have all the money and success in the world, but without friends, it's empty.
Okay, so we've got a life of virtuous action, surrounded by good friends. That sounds pretty amazing. But Aristotle takes it one step further. He says there is one specific activity that sits at the very pinnacle of human existence.
And here it is. The highest form of happiness, he argues, is the life of the mind, the life of contemplation. It's about using our highest, most unique faculty, our intellect, our reason, to reflect on the highest truths. Now, he says the life of practical virtue is the best human life. But the life of the mind, that's something almost divine. It's the activity that makes us the most like gods.
All right, let's put it all together now. We've gone through the goal, the path, the tools, and the must-have extras. So what does Aristotle's final blueprint for a happy, flourishing life actually look like when you lay it all out? So here's the blueprint in a nutshell. First, remember that happiness isn't a fleeting feeling, it's a lifelong activity. Second, you fuel that activity with virtue, which isn't a gift, it's a habit you build through constant practice. Third, you guide that practice with the golden mean, always looking for that sweet spot between too much and too little. Fourth, you absolutely cannot do it alone. A good life is impossible without friends. And finally, the ultimate peak of it all, the highest happiness, comes from the life of the mind, from contemplation.
In the end, Aristotle's 2,400-year-old manual leaves us with a question that is incredibly modern and deeply personal. Since your character is nothing more than the sum of your habits, the real question isn't just, what is a good life? It's, are you, today, practicing the life you want to live? Are your daily actions building the character of the person you truly want to be? That's a question worth thinking about.